Woodman Inn is one of two pubs in Parkend, a village at the foot of the Cannop Valley in the Royal Forest of Dean. During the 19th century, Parkend was a busy industrial village with several coal mines, an ironworks, stoneworks, timber yard and a tin plate works. But by the early 20th century, most of these industries had declined. In more recent times, the village has found new life in tourism, mainly providing accommodation. The village shop, post office and postage stamp cafe caters for both locals and tourists with a warm and friendly welcome and relaxed atmosphere. The Dean Field Studies Centre, once part of Parkend Ironworks, is owned by Bristol City Council and is used to accommodate school children from that city. As well as the Woodman Inn, Parkend has the Fountain Inn and Lodge. Both pubs have guest accommodation, the Fountain with an adjoining hostel. Parkend also has two guest houses, several holiday let properties, a CRU-affiliated club with caravan and camping facilities, and a large camping and caravan site named Whitemead Forest Park. Parkend has a cricket club with teams at several different age levels. Parkend Players is another of many organisations in the village and performs most of its shows at the Memorial Hall. The village also has a very active Women's Institute. Parkend's Carnival, held on August Bank Holiday Monday, is renowned throughout the forest as being the biggest and best for miles around. During the summer, regular Sunday car boot sales are held on the recreation field, the profits from which go to support the Memorial Hall. Parkend Station is currently the northern terminus of the Dean Forest Railway, a 4.5 mile long heritage railway that runs between Parkend and Lydney. The route was part of the former Severn and Wye Railway, which ran from Lydney to Cinderford. Dean Forest Railway now operates steam trains and some heritage diesel services. Today was Day Out with Thomas Day. In 1864, the Severn and Wye Railway began operating small mineral trains on its existing tram road. By 1874, the line had been converted to run standard gauge steam locomotives, and the station was opened in 1875 to allow the company to also offer passenger services alongside its freight. A decline in mineral traffic and passenger numbers saw regular passenger services cease in 1929. The last goods train left Parkend in March 1976, and much of the track was dismantled. The line was bought by the Dean Forest Railway. Parkend Station was extensively reconstructed in 2004 to 2005, and was then officially opened by Her Royal Highness the Princess Royal in May 2006.
Well, I knew the Dean Forest Railway trains were running today, but I didn't realise that I'd actually be here to see one arrive and leave as well, so that was brilliant timing on my part, real bonus. Well, now it's time for me to start my actual walk.
From the station I began my walk. However, as I made my way towards the village church, the heavens opened.
Oh dear, here we go again. Good old British weather. Well, they did forecast thunderstorms and torrential rain throughout the day today, so I suppose I can't complain, but it's just frustrating from my point of view because I've come a long way to do this walk today, and I've also paid overnight accommodation in the area, so I can't just come back here whenever I feel like it. I either do this walk today or it just doesn't get done, so just one of them things. I just have to adapt the walk maybe as I go along, but hopefully I'll get some more sunny spells soon and less of this horrible wet stuff.
St Paul's Church is an impressive building in a forest clearing on the eastern edge of Parkend. The shape provides the point of interest, being both octagonal and cruciform, with the arms formed by the sanctuary, north and west transepts and the west tower. It was designed and built in 1822, together with a village school by Henry Poole, a local priest who raised most of the money through public subscription and his own generosity. Despite the heavy rain, I chose to carry on with my walk, in the hope that this might be just a short shower. My route went straight ahead on a good path, and climbed steadily onto a broad ridge through Oakenhill Wood, a wildlife reserve with nightjars, goshawks, crossbills and siskins. Soon I came to a path along the old mineral loop line of the Severn Wye Railway, which I followed as far as a disused tunnel. From here I climbed above to follow a forest track, past an air shaft for the tunnel and into the hamlet of Moseley Green. I arrived at Moseley Green completely wet through. I had planned to walk further on, but with the heavy rain and odd thunderstorm, it was ridiculous to carry on, so I needed to think again.
Ooh, it's actually starting to brighten up a little bit now. A little bit of rain, but it's looking a bit more promising, but I'm not going to say too much because that's tempting fate. All I will say is that I am absolutely flipping soaked. Oh dear. I think what I'm going to do is just make my way straight back to Parkend. I was going to go on to the next place, which isn't very far away, but I'm just not trusting the rain the way it's been, so I think I'd rather be close to my car just in case it chucks it down again. I was going to go and have a quick half in the rising sun here because that would have been really nice, but I'm just so wet, I don't really want to be dripping wet in their pub, and it wouldn't be fair on them, so I'll just get back to Parkend, get my car and drive on to the next place.
Perched on a wooded hillside, the rising sun is popular with walkers and cyclists. It has an open-plan carpeted bar with modern pub furniture, and serves real ales, ciders and good food, which is available all day. There are great views over the forest from the balcony, and a big woodside garden with play area and duck pond. There is also self-catering accommodation. Passing the pub, I walked on through Churchill enclosure. Arriving back in Parkend, I got into my car and drove on to my next location. Thankfully, by this time, the weather was starting to improve. I parked near Go Ape, a high ropes course hidden all the way up in the treetops, where kids can fly down zip wires, leap off the Tarzan swing and tackle the crossings whilst enjoying the scenery of the Forest of Dean. My reason for coming to this location, however, was not to visit Go Ape, but the lake next to it.
Well, this is my last stop for today, and I've come to the wonderful Mallards Pike Lake.
Most ponds in the Forest of Dean were made to supply water wheels that powered the mills and iron forges of the forest's industrial past. But Mallards Pike Lake was made by the Forestry Commission in the 1970s for the community's pleasure. It is actually two lakes with a narrow causeway running between. The larger, lower pond is used for water sports. The upper pond is left undisturbed for wildlife. I slowly walked around the lower pond. The lakes are a tourist hotspot, noted for wildfowl, including the Dean's speciality of mandarin ducks, but the grassy tips and old stonework marking the site of Wellington Colliery are not so easy to make out.
I've always loved coming to Mallards Pike Lake. I could say it's a favourite spot in the Forest of Dean, but for me there are so many lovely spots in the Forest of Dean I can't really say what my favourite is, but all I will say is that Mallards Pike is just one of the many beautiful places I like in the forest. It was an area that I first discovered for myself when I used to ride on the buses as a teenager all over the Forest of Dean, and I would get off the bus at point A, do a walk to point B, and from point B I'd then get a bus again back home. And I remember Mallards Pike was on a walk that I did myself when I was doing one of those bus trips. Now, the last time I came to Mallards Pike was quite some years ago, and it was a couple of my Bristol friends, and we were on a walk in the area at the time, and I seem to remember at that particular occasion I was a little bit worse for wear.
After having followed most of the path around the lower pond, I came to the causeway separating it from the upper pond, which I walked across to. I then followed the remainder of the path beside the lower pond.
Well, even though I got absolutely drenched earlier today, it's actually not been too bad this afternoon. The weather's been quite dry, so I can't complain about the weather too much. And to end my day here at Mallards Pike really ends my day on a high, I think. Now that I've actually dried out a bit, I might even just pop back to Moseley Green and have that quick half that I was going to have earlier.